Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 2020 CLIFF-GRADS Science Collaboration webinar series. Thank you all for joining us. We might still have a few more people join, but we will kick the session off now. Haven't met many of you in person. I'm Hazel Tomlin. I work for the Global Research Alliance Secretariat on agricultural greenhouse gases, so the GRA, and I am the current coordinator for the CLIFF-GRADS program. Checking. Cool. So some of you have already been using the question and answer box. This is structured. I've seen a couple of questions. This is structured as a webinar, which means that you won't be able to access the mic as a participant, nor share your video, but you will be able to ask questions in the question and answer box. So that is a small double chat box at the bottom of your screen that says Q&A, and you can open that and then you can actually use an upvote function if you see a question that you would like to have answered by any speaker. So we would encourage you to use that, and we would also encourage you to please comment if you have anything relevant to add to a question that is asked. So the 2020 series will cover 5 special sessions and also 5 thematic sessions. So the special sessions will have 5 guest presenters, and we'll be covering topics relevant to you all as CLIFF-GRADS alumni. And the special sessions audience is open to all alumni and all hosts. And the student thematic sessions will essentially allow the round 3 students to present their PhD research to one another and collaborate with one another. So the audience for those sessions is the CLIFF-GRADS students only from all 4 rounds. Today we are going to have Hayden Montgomery, who's the special representative of the Global Research Alliance. Some of you have already met him speak to us about agriculture in the context of climate change, and also the Global Research Alliance and CCAF's research networks. And then I will speak to you about how to make the most of your CLIFF-GRADS experience, so some of the resources that we have set up for you. We're going to have a panel of alumni, previous alumni who have already completed their CLIFF-GRADS research visit. And we'll also have Saniro Costa Jr., who is the science officer of CCAF's, the Climate Change, Agriculture and Food Security Low Emissions Development Flagship of the CGIAR program. And we'll have question and answer sessions at the end of each of the speakers. So please do use that question and answer box. Right, so I will hand over to Hayden now.
Thanks, Hazel. And I'll just share my screen. And hopefully that'll... Great. So thanks very much, Hazel, and greetings, everybody. Good evening from New Zealand, and good morning or good day to wherever you are in the world. I see we have a lot more people that have joined now. So as Hazel mentioned, I'm the special representative of the Global Research Alliance, and so that function is to assist the chair and the vice chair of the GRA and its research group co-chairs to basically strengthen the organisation and give it more visibility in international climate change policy and research fora, and try to connect the GRA community with other research and policy communities, and help manage the partnerships that the GRA maintains with other organisations. And the CGIAR CCAF's program that I'll talk about soon is one of those very important partners of the GRA. So I'll just speak to you for 10 or 15 minutes, I guess, and then there'll be time for questions if there are any afterwards. And I just want to cover some of the policy context for the CLIFF-GRADS program, starting with the Paris Agreement on climate change. Probably you're all very familiar with this, but and you may have seen me present in other webinars in the last little while, but I wanted to have at least a coherent presentation here today. So I wanted to focus on two particular aspects of the Paris Agreement and the connection with agriculture, which is really, I guess, the first and strongest treatment of agriculture in a climate change treaty. It was never so strong within the Convention on Climate Change, and in the Kyoto Protocol, agriculture was pretty much invisible. It was all about the economy-wide targets. And so what was achieved in the Paris Agreement on Climate Change, of course, is we have a temperature target, or a couple of temperature targets of the 2 degrees and the 1.5 degrees. And the way that that temperature target is reflected in the Paris Agreement Treaty is effectively as one element of a chapter or a paragraph that alongside it is an additional objective which relates to the idea of low greenhouse gas emissions development taking place in a manner that does not threaten food production. And so this is a very explicit and equal treatment of food production in the context of the climate targets, which I think is very important positioning of agriculture. And when it comes to the role of agriculture in contributing to the overall goal of the Paris Agreement in terms of its temperature target, some work has been conducted to try to model what would be, I guess, considered to be a fair contribution of agriculture alongside other sectors to be consistent with a 2 degree warming scenario, or a no more than 2 degree warming scenario. And the modelling, and of course, as many of you know, modelling is not without its difficulties, but it came up with a tentative number that was that by 2030, we would need to be seeing reductions of 1 gigaton from the entire agriculture sector globally, in order to for agriculture to play a part in achieving that no more than 2 degrees warming. And when I'm talking about agriculture in this context, I'm talking about just the methane and nitrous oxide from agriculture. So that's not an insignificant reduction in the next 10 years to be making. That's per annum, of course. And then subsequent modelling was done that said, well, what do we know about the potential for agriculture to reduce its emissions? And again, only looking at the non-CO2 greenhouse gases. And a series of 3 different models, sorry, the 3 different models gave us the 1 gigaton reductions required. Additional analysis was done looking at the marginal abatement costs of reducing greenhouse gases, and it came up with numbers quite significantly lower. So basically it said that while the sector should deliver 1 gigaton, we can only get between 20 and 40% of that out of currently available and cost-effective technologies and practices. And so the message there, I guess, to the research community is we need a lot more solutions, and we need those solutions to be lower cost. And the other point that this analysis demonstrates is there's also a role for soil carbon to be part of that reduction contribution from agriculture, notwithstanding the challenges of soil carbon sequestration. I guess the other point I want to highlight is that in response to the Paris Agreement, we saw a lot of a change in the way that countries were thinking about their climate targets, climate commitments. And for the first time, really, agriculture became prominent within the nationally determined contributions, or in this case, the intended nationally determined contributions. And that was before they were ratified in the Paris Agreement. And the good news is that while in many cases the way that the targets or the actions that are articulated are not necessarily very precise and maybe lack data to underpin them, the good news is that many countries in all regions of the world included agriculture in their climate action plans, which is a very good starting point for further work, of course. And all countries have a requirement to regularly update and improve their nationally determined contributions. So I think if we can look at the chart on the right of this slide, and I think you can see my pointer maybe, I'm not sure. You can see that in all regions of the world, you have very significant proportions of countries, including mitigation and agriculture within their targets, which is good. The other quite recent thing we've seen also is that because of the Paris Agreement and other commitments, we're seeing perhaps even more ambitious action being taken from outside the public sector, and that is with financial institutions and investors starting to green their investment, divest from fossil fuels and such things. So, you know, these are funds and investors that think in decadal time frames. So it's very important that these entities are already starting to think about their investment decisions, because the decisions that these entities, companies, etc., make today will be with us for the next 2 to 3 decades. And of course, you will know there's been a significant change in the way that youth have been mobilised and advocating for very strong and ambitious climate action from governments. And of course, Greta Thunberg is probably the most prominent, but there are a number of others in different regions that have joined her and been part of this global youth movement to promote stronger action from governments. And they've had a very prominent place within the United Nations Secretary General process. Greta and her colleagues were on the stage last year in New York, and they were really pushing governments hard. I was there and I heard it, and it was quite impressive. So that's the sort of the context for the CGIAR and the GRA, and I now want to just talk about first the CGIAR, and I'm giving this presentation on behalf of the GRA and the CCAF CGIAR team, Linny Wallenberg, who couldn't be with us at the moment, and Sanero, but I'm very happy to provide the presentation on their behalf. And so first, to introduce the CGIAR to you, this is an international agricultural research consortium. It comprises of 15 centres, and you can see on the map where they're located in terms of their head offices. Many centres have multiple offices co-located around the world with other centres. And then there are many partners that the CGIAR works with in order to advance its activities. In terms of its activities, currently at least, there are 11 programs, and so the top row you have fish, trees, livestock, maize, etc. Climate being one of those, and then you have 3 so-called platforms that cut across the CGIAR. And so you have a big data platform, a breeding platform, and a gene bank platform. And the last 2 are particularly strong CGIAR, let's say, areas of capability, and very traditional areas of the CGIAR with crop improvements and gene banks and things like that. It's kind of the Green Revolution was driven by the CGIAR and its scientists. And so the climate program sits within this landscape of activity, and CCAF's, which I'll come on to now, is the program coordination mechanism to address climate change in a cross-cutting manner across all of the CGIAR system and all of its centres. And so when you look at the climate change, agriculture and food security program, you'll see a number of research flagships, one of which is low emissions development, and that's where Sanero is working with Linny as the leader, and where the CLIFF-GRADS program has been developed and advocated. And you can see also on the slide the regions where, at least until now, CCAFs have been operating. Before going on to GRA and the rest of the presentation, just in terms of the work of CCAFs, I mean, there's a great varied work program across these different flagships, and the CCAFs program produces science blog and material. It produces opinion pieces, scientific publications, makes investments in capability building, etc. And it also led most recently this process, and a very significant consultation process associated with it, around our actions to transform the food system. And this report was published in the middle of June this year, and it's worth having a look at if you haven't already. In terms of some of the activities that CCAF have undertaken in the last, well, in the current triennium, as it's called, you have these projects with different centres as partners, and focusing on different aspects of greenhouse gas mitigation. And as I mentioned earlier, the CGIAR itself then works with a multitude of other partners, and I won't name them all here, but you have NGOs, you have development policy partners, you have research partners, and of course you have the centres themselves and the private sector. So a very diverse group of partners that assist the CGIAR in delivering its work. And now in terms of the Global Research Alliance, this is a different sort of entity. It's not a It's not a bricks and mortar institution, it's a virtual organization comprising 62 member countries, and those are the dark blue colored on this map here. And typically speaking, the members of the GRA are represented by their ministries of agriculture, not always, but mostly. And then those representatives, they decide in which research groups of the GRA that their country wishes to participate, and they will nominate contact points to represent that country in the groups. And if you can see on the right of this, you'll see we have a research group on paddy rice, livestock, croplands, and we have an integrative group, excuse me, that cuts across soil carbon and measurement issues. We have within these groups have established a number of scientific networks that already you can participate in as you know, any individual expert that is interested in a particular field. The networks are all available on the website within the research group web pages, and you'll be able to see what's happening there. And usually there's a contact person. So if you're interested in animal selection and genetics and genomics or microbiology or crop agroforestry systems or you name it, you can already get involved in those without having to be formally part of the member as a member country. And then we have a whole host of different activities that we promote, awards and scholarships programs, the CLIFF-GRADS being one of those, and a growing portfolio of investments that we help promote and that our members invest in mitigation science and capability building activities to improve greenhouse gas inventories, measure greenhouse gases in the field, provide guidance manuals and other technical documents to assist countries to design policy better effectively. In terms of our partners, you'll see here the CGIAR is one of our strategic partners, and then we have a host of others, many of which are repeated on the previous slide with CCAF. So it's, we're working on a similar community. We have development banks, private sector, technical platforms that are in different regions. We work with other initiatives like CCAFs or like the CCAC, which is a Climate and Clean Air Coalition, European research platform called FATCHA JPI, which is Food Security, Agriculture, Climate Change, the European Commission, and so on and so forth. We also have the good fortune to being accredited observer of the IPCC process. So members of the GRA can nominate scientists through the GRA accredited observer status to be lead authors and other contributors to the IPCC process, which is really great. Just in terms of investments that the GRA is going to be making, and this is a bit of a sort of conceptualization of this, because of course we rely on the members' own contributions and our partners' contributions, but we work across capability building, trainings. We have these awards and scholarship programs. We're going to have a big focus on both the mitigation research agenda, helping coordinate our members' research budgets and trying to accelerate the progress by doing so, as well as investing a lot in improved measurement and quantification of greenhouse gases in developing country regions. And we're looking to develop these regional hubs with capability in key areas that can help serve multiple countries. And all of that should feed up into improving inventories as the main framework within which countries can quantify their emissions from agriculture. We want to validate science in the farms by investing in small-scale pilot mitigation projects or demonstration projects. And all of this, we hope, will contribute to improved policy development and overall accelerated action on addressing greenhouse gases from agriculture. This map on the right just shows you the current the countries that are leading the different research groups and the council. So CLIFF-GRADS, this is a bit of a flagship program within the GRA and CCAFs, and we're all very pleased and proud of it. And we're really delighted that you've joined us on this webinar. As you know, it's the CLIFF-GRADS stands for the Climate, Food and Farming Global Research Alliance Development Scholarships. We don't come up with short names in this territory. We always have these long-winded acronyms. And the background of this is that we wanted to support PhD students in developing countries in their field of research and provide opportunities for students to get alongside world's experts, have access to equipment they mightn't have had otherwise, and hopefully in the course of doing that improve the quality of their research and their PhDs, and integrate both the CLIFF-GRADS students with each other, and also to our research community we have in the GRA. And we know that in time, and even already, CLIFF-GRADS students are strengthening our own country's contributions to the GRA community, which is really fantastic. So the way it works, we have these fellowships, which are about 10,000 US, sometimes more, per student. That's for up to 6 months, of course, well, normally up to 6 months, based in somewhere in the world. Of course, with COVID, we're having to work slightly differently in the short term. We have an objective to award 50% of the awards to women. We haven't achieved that regularly, but we strive to do that. So for you women in the audience, please promote this widely with your colleagues. Funding for the CLIFF-GRADS program is provided by the New Zealand government through its Ministry for Primary Industries and by the CGIAR Trust Fund donors. The focus of the awards are always mitigation as the primary focus across all agricultural subsectors, primarily on the production end of the supply chain, so on-farm greenhouse gases, and also there have been a few awards that have focused on food loss and waste emissions. We have had a workshop. There may be a bit more on this later. I won't take much more time talking about that. And we try to find opportunities to integrate you all into the work of CCAFS and the work of the GRA. We have a very strong interest in doing that, and we hope you'll take those opportunities. And it's a program that, while it's called CLIFF-GRADS now, it used to be called CLIFF, and we sort of modified and added and strengthened the investment in what was already in existence through CCAFS with the CLIFF program that Ngoni, who's on this webinar, set up, and we're really pleased to be able to take it to a new level. In terms of the perception or the let's say how the CLIFF-GRADS program is seen by those who've taken advantage of it. We did a survey recently, and in terms of assessing the impact of the program, and as you can see, a very positive response rate across deepening understandings, building new partnerships, learning new techniques, quality of thesis, new and improved research. Above 90% in all those categories. So, at least for the people who are benefiting from the program, there is a very strong benefit that's perceived, which is really satisfying for us. So I think that's it from me. I'll happily take any questions if there are any, and I'll pass back to Hazel, and I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thanks, Hayden. We have had a few questions come through. I'll start off with one question. So we've seen a recent increase in the number of agriculture mitigation strategies that have been included in nationally determined contributions. Why do you think we've seen the recent shift?
I think well, a number of reasons. More countries, particularly in the developing regions, have through the Paris Agreement commitments had to prepare nationally determined contributions, and that wasn't a requirement of all countries in the past under the Convention and the Kyoto Protocol. So when those economies consider climate action, it's inevitable that agriculture is part of that, because agriculture is a very significant part of the economy, and like in New Zealand and a very few developed countries, agriculture is often more than half or extremely high proportion of national emissions, so it's difficult to overlook it. I think also there's been a strong push from, or an expectation from society that agriculture is not, agriculture needs to contribute. Notwithstanding the challenges and of course the issues and primacy of food security, there's an expectation out there, and a growing one, that agriculture is part of the problem, if you like, and it should be part of the solution. So I think it's probably multiple reasons.
Thank you. We have a question here from Cesar Pinades Patino, that host institutions in developed countries seem to attract more candidates than institutions in developing countries. This seems to conflict with the objectives of the program. Can you comment on how we might encourage more hosts in developing countries?
Thanks, Cesar. I'm not sure it would conflict with the objectives of the program. I think the objectives of the program are providing really good opportunities for PhD students to advance their research in, in places that have the capability that they may not have in their home university. So if by being in a developed country institution, I don't think that's necessarily conflicting with that objective, but certainly we do like to see hosts from many different regions, and we have seen more hosts over the different rounds coming from developing country regions and institutions. So I guess that will grow, and I think probably as the capacity and the capability grows within developing country institutions, there'll be more opportunity or more possibility for hosts to come from those institutions as well. So I think probably we'll see over time an evolution of, hosts being more able to host, or institutions in developing countries being more able to host when their own capability has been built further.
Yeah, that might relate a little bit to the visibility of the program as well. And we've definitely seen increasing visibility of the CLIFF-GRADS program of the previous 2 rounds at least. So there's another question here about international agreements regarding climate change adaptation and mitigation. And yeah, perhaps Hayden, you can comment on international agreements and how climate change and adaptation mitigation is implemented.
I see the question, yeah. Do I think that they're all implemented? To varying degrees. I guess never as much as one would hope when the commitments are made. I guess that's what we're trying to do through our work within the GRA, and what CCAFS tries to do as well, is assist countries to be able to implement those commitments they've made. And let's sort of reflect on reality. What happens in these processes? You have a very compressed and high politically charged occasion, say the Paris summit or other COPs at the end of the year in the climate change process, where in that moment countries are pushed harder than they may have been prepared, and it means that sometimes you have a bit of catching up to do in implementation in the years ensuing that commitment that was made under significant political pressure. And so I think it's probably inevitable that the actual implementation will follow a little bit behind the ambition that's been stated at the higher level in those treaties and other agreements.
Thank you. We have another question here from Maxwell. So he's asked, how does the focus of CLIFF and CCAFS merge with small data collected from research that is not representative of big data, which could be ideal for the generalization of national policies related to agricultural emissions?
Yeah, good question. This is the big challenge we have, not just for data collected in CCAFS and CLIFF-GRADS, but just generally data, representative nature of it or not. I guess first of all it would depend on the projects that have been done, but where those projects would be collecting data relevant to, say, quantify greenhouse gases at a national level, the databases are being developed in different emission sources that within which the data collected by CCAFS CLIFF-GRADS students could be submitted, and CCAFS have the samples website, which has tried to do a similar thing and creating a database and collecting data from different areas of the world and making that available in a sort of publicly available way. But it's a very good question, and it is a very significant challenge, is sort of harmonization of data, ensuring that the data is representative and useful for policy making. And I guess the way we're approaching our investments through the GRA is we see that the national greenhouse gas inventory is the primary and best framework to collect that data, and the trick is how we can have multiple sources of data that can contribute to that. So I don't have a very sort of coherent answer on that one, because I think it's the challenge we all face, but we are trying to create frameworks and databases that can help improve that.
Thank you, Hayden. If there are no more questions, then I will hand over to Saniro to make the introductions to our alumni panel.
Great. So Hazel, can you change slides, please? Okay, thanks. Okay, so hello everyone. So very quickly, and thank you, Hazel, for that. And just echoing my colleagues, I also welcome you on behalf of CCAFs to this new round of CLIFF-GRADS webinar. So this is amazing to have you here. So my name is Saniro, and I'm a science officer of the CCAF's Low Emissions Development Flagship, which is led by Lynn Wallenberg, that you all meet soon in the coming webinars. So now we are going to go to the alumni panel, where former CLIFF-GRADS students will share with us their experience. And to start it off, we're gonna have Samuel Anuga from Ghana. He participated in the round 2 of CLIFF. He participated in the second round of CLIFF-GRADS, supervised by Nagoni, with a project called Just How Smart Are the Climate Smart Options Promoted in the Climate Smart Villages of Nicaragua. So Samuel Anuga, the floor is yours, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Scenario, and so good to see you again for a very long time. Good afternoon, everyone. Greetings to you wherever you are across the world. So as Scenario indicated, I had the opportunity to have my CLIFF-GRADS fellowship at CIAT. Worked on the project, How Smart Are the Climate Smart Agriculture Options Promoted in the Climate Smart Villages of Nicaragua. Okay, so in my project, there was a little change, and I had the privilege to work across not only climate smart villages in Nicaragua, but the other climate smart villages across Latin America, Southeast Asia, and then Africa. So I would like to share with you some of the experiences I had working in CIAT. One amazing experience for me was the working environment in CIAT, because it was a wonderful scientific community for me. It was the first time to work in a lab measuring greenhouse gas emissions, which I started working on my PhD from Ghana. It was really a very good opportunity for me to work in such a scientific environment, working with Ngoni and other CCAFs team who really provided wonderful support on my scientific project. And yeah, aside working on my project, it was a new environment for me. So I took the opportunity to also interact, making new friends, because Colombia, where the center is a friendly country, and I had the opportunity to make a lot of friends in Colombia because the people are so excited, you know, everyone supported me. I joined groups, went for hiking. You can see in the videos, it's really, really a lot of fun in Colombia for me. And I really enjoyed the people I met in Colombia. Scenario, you can go to the next slide. Yes, so aside my friendship making and working on my project, it was an opportunity for me to visit the country. So I took few holidays to go around. I worked from Cali, which the center is, but I tried to visit other cities. And if you heard of Medellin, Medellin is one of the popular cities in Colombia and one of the major tourist destinations. So I went to Medellin, visiting a lot of craft centers. And then I went to El Paño, which is very popular in Medellin and in Colombia. So it was really an amazing experience for me to see these places. Watching movies, I see like about Medellin and all that. So having like that kind of experience physically by visiting the place was really, really amazing for me. So I appreciate that from the CLIFF-GRADS support. Scenario, you can go to the next one. Yes, I like food. And Colombia has amazing dishes that you could try. And because I made a lot of friends, when there is a party, people invited me to their homes. Oh, Samuel, come for dinner today. So yeah, it was very good for me to experience different cuisines from Colombia, empanadas, a lot of them, which I wouldn't have ever had the opportunity to have a feel. But visiting Colombia was so amazing to get to taste these foods and all that. So aside my slides, one of two things I would like to share with those who are yet to visit their centers for their CLIFF-GRADS fellowship. One thing I would like to share with you, which is most important from experience, is communication. And you need to see your host not just as a scientific person who is going to support you in your project, but somebody that you can share whatever you think you can share with. Because for me, it was working with Ngoni, he became more like a family to me. And I didn't just ask him or share my concerns with him on the project, but other issues, anything I wanted to talk to him about, I did talk to him about, and he was very open. Instances where he could not help, he could bring someone on board who could give me the right support and all that. So I think those who are going for their fellowships, communication is very, very important. Just try to be open as much as possible with your host. Whatever it is, you'll be surprised they always have the solution. So you should be forthcoming in the way you communicate with your host supervisor. Another thing I would like to put across is try to have patience with your host supervisor, because normally they already have a lot on their table. They are working on a lot of projects across the world, not only on your project. So you should also exercise a bit of patience when you get there and things are a bit slow. Just try to have patience. And as I said, communicate. At the end of the day, it's going to be successful. You will like it. You will have wonderful experience, and you come out, you know, amazing, and both in the scientific community and then in your social life. So thank you very much. These are the few things I would like to share with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samuel. This is amazing to hear from you. That's a great testimony, really, really useful. And I hope you are well, and I'm looking forward to catching up with you soon. Thanks again.
So much. Thanks.
So thanks. So moving on, we're gonna hear now from Titis Apdini from Indonesia. She was hosted by Bangor University in 2019, supervised by Dr. Gibbons. I'm sorry. And the project she developed was related to the economic implications of greenhouse gas mitigation from dairy systems in Costa Rica. So Titis, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Siniro. Can you hear me clearly? I think there is a noise behind me because there is a praying alarms going on in Indonesia at this moment.
Yes, I'm hearing you very clearly.
Okay, perfect. So I remember when I applied CLIFF-GRADS, I'm very grateful to be accepted in this program and to have the opportunity of doing research with the expertise that used to be known on the paper. When I looked up into the several projects when I applied for this program, I really looked into the programs and the supervisors, and I used the opportunity to have a nice scientific interaction with the scientists that used to be only on the screen for me. So that was a very remarkable experience for me. Well, I would like to share you many aspects of the experiences that I gained through this program. First, of course, the academic skills. So my assignment is related to the system approach to conduct environmental and economic assessments from dairy farming. Well, my background itself, I'm now doing PhD in Wageningen University, working on Indonesian dairy farming system to assess their environmental impact and selected mitigation scenarios for Indonesian farming systems, which is very different from Costa Rica. So herewith, through this fellowship, I recognize the different systems of dairy farmings, and I was familiar with the method to assess environmental assessment better. In this case, we use life cycle assessments, and also on top of the life cycle assessment, because our main objective is to assess economic implication. Through the fellowship, I learned how to do or how to conduct marginal abatement cost curve to assess economic implication of the different mitigation scenarios for Costa Rican dairy farming systems. And of course, by the end of the fellowship, I had a very nice opportunity to write a scientific article and summarize all of the results that from my assignments into a nice paper with the other research teams in the projects. Next, please, Siniro. Yeah, so within the project itself, I learned so much from the research team, because the project where I was participating, it's called Suscorida, or Sustainable Costa Rican Dairy Farming, dairy farming in the future. And Suscorida had the partners not only from Bangor University itself, but the researcher from Bangor University works with the researcher from Rothamsted Research UK, Cartier in Costa Rica, and other local partners such as Ministry of Agriculture Costa Rica and Dos Pinos, the biggest dairy cooperative in Costa Rica. So being part of the project as a CLIFF-GRADS students, I was introduced to the different scientists, different experts from the local partners. And of course, I learned a lot from them about their expectation from the project, about their vision to the project, and about the method or their research design that they want to conduct through the project. So here, I learned a lot how to have a nice dialogue with the different people from different backgrounds of expertise about achieving the mission of the project itself. So it's a really big project. It has a very ambitious objective. To achieve that objective, they involve many partners in the project. So this is very valuable experience, because in the future, if we want to apply for a grant, or if we want to apply for a position in a research project, I already have the experience to work with different partners from academics, researchers, and also people from business and government. Next, please. Yeah. Besides the working for the assignment itself, I had an opportunity to visit Costa Rica for a last workshop in last September 2019. That was a workshop that aimed to identify the mitigation options for Costa Rican dairy farms. The workshop itself, it was attended by different stakeholders from governments, universities, organizations, farmers organizations, and also dairy cooperative. So through that workshop, although it was only one day, but the research team brought me to the different stakeholders and have a nice conversation about what is truly happening in Costa Rican dairy farms, what are the thought of the farmers, what are the vision of the government, and then having a nice discussion with them to achieve the mission of the Suscorida project. It was really eye-opening for me. So if you have a chance in CLIFF-GRADS and you want to build up your networking and connection for the future, for your future career, this is very relevant opportunities, and I will advise for all of the CLIFF-GRADS fellows to to maximize this potential and grab the opportunities as much as possible. I think that's my last slide, or maybe there's a next one, or I don't remember exactly. Yeah, so
That's the last one.
Yeah, that's the last one. And yeah, for anyone who are working with the modeling or environmental assessment, I'm happy to discuss anything with you all. Thank you.
Titis, thank you so much. That's also great to hear from you. Thank you very much for your testimony and advice. It's really, really useful. And yeah, it sounded that you've had a great time as a CLIFF-GRADS recipient. And again, thank you so much.
Definitely. Thank you, Siniro.
Thanks. And so move on. Now we're gonna hear from Florencia Garcia from Argentina. She was hosted by INIA in Chile in 2018 and supervised by Dr. Emilio. Her research project was called Effects of Inhibiting Rumen Methanogenesis on Microbial Biomass Production and Composition. So Florencia, thanks for being here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Siniro, for the introduction. Hi, everybody, wherever you are zooming in from. Thank you very much for the opportunity of sharing my experience, which was an excellent experience. Hazel, next, please. Next slide, sorry. Well, my supervisors, Emilio and Camila, gave me a lot of support from the very beginning. We had a couple of virtual meetings even before I went to Chile that really gave me a picture, allowed me to get a picture of what the project was and all the things that we were going to do. So that helped me a lot to plan in advance before even I got to Chile. They put a lot of trust in me, and I was kind of in charge of the operative organization of the experiment, and that helped me a lot to build up my confidence. That was one of my big changes for me. I got to use the SF6 technique, that is to measure methane from in vivo experiments that I'm trying to set up here in Cordoba that we don't yet have. But besides that, being able to use that equipment and learn about that, I learned a lot from them. We had many discussions about the experiments. And I remember the first question Emilio asked me in that first virtual kickoff meeting was, what do you think of the science of this? I was kind of knocked out about the question, but I'm really thankful for all that I learned with them. It was a really comprehensive thought that they gave me. I was also very lucky because there was another CLIFF-GRADS, Maria de Bernardi, that went to the same city, to the same place actually. She was there a month before the ride, and that helped me a lot to set up and gave me a lot of information and support once I arrived. Next, please. I will take for granted that you're really eager to take as much as you can of the exciting experiments that you're going to do. So I will focus more on the personal side in this advice. And the advice will be to please share time, take the opportunity to share time outside the work. Share a coffee, share a beer, a trip, or even a concert, as Camila invited me to. Get to know the people behind the science. I treasured some very special lessons I learned from Emilio in those long beer talks, and so get the opportunity to know them. I really believe that long-lasting bonds are built up from these personal bonds, the friendship that you get to build. And also take time to know people working in other areas, in other parts. For example, I participate I share a lot of time with the group that Maria were working, that they work in soil, and that definitely also taught me a lot. Next, please, Hazel. And definitely my biggest challenge was that by that time my son had 2 years old, and that was quite challenging, not only for me, but for my family, for my partner, and especially for my son. You can imagine. We had to adapt to a new place, a new family dynamic. He also had to go to the kindergarten for 1 month. So imagine how difficult can that be. And by far, the hardest moment was when I had to say, "See you soon." That is the picture there in the middle, that he's saying goodbye. When he came back to Argentina, and I spent the last 6 weeks by myself. And I think that adds on a little extra pressure, or at least tension in some moments, complicating the day-to-day activities. But it's kind of this whole really comprehensive experience that you get to have. So this is part of that transformative process that changes you a lot, not only in the academic, of course, and professional, but also in the personal aspects. Yours and your whole environment. Next, please. And last, but definitely not least, being awarded a CLIFF-GRADS was not only about going to take the opportunity to have this visit accomplished, this visit in Chile, and was much more about that. It was about being a part of this network of young researchers that will have the same goal of tackling climate change, big goal, and not much time to take action for many of these aspects. So I had this experience meant to me many changes in so many ways. Today I've chosen some aspects to share with you, but I'm really happy if you have any other questions, whatever question that might be. And I'm really keen to know about your project in the following sessions. So thank you very much for the opportunity of sharing. That'll be all. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Florencia. This is really useful tips and a very, let's say, touching testimony. Thank you so much for that. And this last picture you choose, it's amazing. It's a remarkable time we had last year in Indonesia. Again, thank you so much for your testimony. So moving on to our last presentation and last student. So that's my country fellow, Yuri from Brazil. So Yuri was hosted by ISRIC in the Netherlands in 2019, supervised by Dr. Gerard, and he developed a project called Assessing the Impact of Land Use Change Scenarios on Soil Organic Carbon. So Yuri, the floor is yours. Obrigado.
Thank you, Senor. Thank you. So yes, I was hosted by ISRIC, that is the International Soil Reference and Information Center. It's also called usually as World Soil Information, and it's a great environment. So the picture shows from bottom left is the building of ISRIC, close by the World Soil Museum, and is the right below the above the entrance. Sorry, and The next picture is Stefan Mentel, that is the coordinator of the museum, and he's very kind and very a great soil scientist. And moving on, we have a picture on Gerard Huvenik, that was my supervisor at the time, and we were in a dinner and very friendly and I would say family moment. And at the back we have and also to the right Berta, that was also a second round CLIFF-GRADS member, and it was really nice that we had close talks. So we discussed almost every day, like for after the work, for 1 hour or two, what would be to do to improve my research and his research. So sometimes I went home and I was thinking about the topic, and next day I come with a good idea or a new idea to help him. And so as the opposite is the same. So he was also give me suggestions, and it was a really nice cooperation. And also Gerard was for me like a great I would not say boss, but a leader, very humble and very nice person. I mean, I could stop him anytime to talk or ask some doubt, and he was always open. And even if he had no time, he would say, okay, we talk tomorrow or something, just we schedule and it will be fine. Next slide, please. Hi. Yes, thanks. So talking a little about what was done there. So the main idea was to predict soil carbon in time in advance. So we predict the end of the project was to have an idea what would be the soil concentration carbon into the year of 2070, and the soil accumulated in the carbon accumulated in the soil is directly related with land use. So we developed land use scenarios from 2017, 2030, 15, 70. And also it was related with, I would say, climate and soil indexes. And it was used in machine learning to have an idea of the soil concentration carbon in 2070. Yes, next, please. Yeah, I had a great opportunity to join one course that was Soils of the World, and this big picture is inside the Soil Museum. They have we call monoliths. That is like a sample of soil, the entire profile from all the continents. It's a really nice place, and also they have like hundreds of profiles in the basement. And to the right, it was practicing in the field with Stefan Mentel and the group. So we were analyzing, discussing the formation of the soil and the aspects of the soil also for agriculture. Yeah, next, please. And I was very lucky to be volunteer at the Wageningen Soil Conference. And so to the left, we can see the volunteer team, and we were helping all the conference, all days, the previews. We had meetings and those preparation. It was a great experience for me to see how any conference is built, and to see this organization. And to the right, we can see a picture of Erika Mihaly. She's from Hungary and also soil scientist. She's a great soil scientist, and this was a masterclass of soil classification. And I was directly in touch with her, helping previously and on the day. and also helping. I was keep learning about soil, and it was a unique experience to be volunteer and join all this. Yes, next please. Yeah, just closing thoughts. To me, to be hosted in ISRIC was more than exchange, I would say, scholarship. I was in a different environment from the university. It was more like an institute, right? And so different from the university, they are running several projects at the same time. So I could see how is the life of researchers. And as Titis said, I could be in touch with scientists that before was just on the screen, and I learned a lot with those professionals, and we keep in touch. It is really nice. If they need my help, they just ask. I will be there for anytime they need. And for the newcomers, the future scholarshipers, my advice would be just be yourself and talk when you need, and you can ask for help. It can cut a lot of time that you got stuck at, and integrate with people and culture, because as my friend Samuel said, the gastronomy and the habits of the people can be quite interesting, and it's quite unique to learn or to join a new culture. And above all, make friends and enjoy the time. Thank you very much. And also I would get time to thank CLIFF-GRADS and all the involved. This was a great time for me, and I learned a lot with those professionals and researchers. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Yuri. Thank you very much. Very great and touching testimony as well. And it sounded to me that you had an intense research interaction with your colleagues in the Netherlands, which is great to hear. So yeah, and so we came to an end in terms of the testimonies. So as you may have noticed from them, that the CLIFF-GRADS has this power to create an environment for unique experiences. And I really hope the next and the future recipients may have the same chance, right? And now we have the chance to know more and to hear more from these former CLIFF-GRADS recipients, our colleagues today. So any questions for Samuel, Florencia, Titis, or Yuri, please put in the chat and we're gonna ask them thereafter. And thank you so much for all testimonies. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Saniro. Yeah, again, just to mirror what Saniro said, thank you so much for sharing your valuable experience. It's really excellent to hear, and I'm sure it will be extremely relevant for many of the CLIFF-GRADS who are about to undertake their journey. We do actually have one question in here from Sani. So can you share with us your major challenges that you encountered, if there were any? And we can take maybe a couple of responses on this one.
Yeah, I would say some words. That my biggest challenge was about communication, because sometimes you think if I talk to my supervisor too frequently, I would disturb him, but maybe you can talk to a colleague and for a quick doubt, but keep your appointments like weekly or every 2 weeks. So yeah, we were doing it like that, and it was smooth, I mean, but yeah, you always have to talk.
Thanks, Yuri.
Okay, Hazel, do you want me to talk? Yeah. Can I say something?
Please.
Yeah, okay. So one of my biggest challenges was the scientific approaches from the beginning, because I was working on my project in Ghana, and I felt I knew what I was doing to some extent on my methodologies. But when I got to CIAT, I realized that it's more in-depth than the fundamentals I knew. So the beginning was a little bit difficult in terms of getting to work on my project with the methodologies and all that. But of course, that was the reason why I went to CIAT, and yeah, it was okay by the end of it, because my supervisors took me through what I needed to know and how to go about the project, and it was fine.
Thank you, Samuel. So we have well, Florencia, you'd like to speak? I see Titis, you've just unmuted as well. Perhaps Titis, you go first.
Okay. Sorry, Flor. For me, it was the communication as Yuri, but more into set the boundary of our work, because sometimes your supervisors notice that you are so excited with the assignment, and they tend to give you more because they know that you are capable of it. But bear in mind that we only have 6 months or less. So the challenge for me is because I was so excited about everything, and doing modeling is playing a lot with the scenarios that we set at the beginning, but of course we have a time limitation. So almost in the end of the fellowship, I should communicate that this is my boundary. This is what I think relevant with the narrative of the paper or the deliverable that we agreed upon at the beginning. Thanks.
Thank you. And Florencia?
Thank you. I share my biggest challenge, and by far that was my biggest challenge. So I will focus on the second part of the question that Shady said, that what recommendations, what would be when you're homesick? That is also a big challenge. And I think the recommendation there will be to try to do things outside work, meet people, enjoy your time. You're in a different country, surely with lots of things to see, get to travel, get to do cultural things, go to a theater, whatever experience that may do you well, experience food, as Samuel mentioned. Obviously you're not home, so the places you're going to be are not going to be exactly like home. Make it your home, make it your family, person around you wants you there. They invited you in a sense, so try to build up that bonds, that friendship, that family, Samuel mentioned. So make it that your home. For those things, probably would be the challenges to do activities, look for activities. That would be my recommendation on that aspect. Thank you.
It's really good advice. Thank you, Flora. There are a few other questions coming through. Some specifically for you, Titis, which perhaps will connect you afterwards about the modelling. Or maybe I can ask it now. Ahmed has asked about if there's any specific modelling software that you could recommend to learn ahead of his visit, or that will be relevant for some of the other students also doing modelling projects.
Okay, I was about to type my answer actually. I thought that it's for private, but I will answer it right now. I didn't have the experience as well at the beginning, but the most important thing at the beginning, if you want to work with modeling, is to know the flow of the modeling. What is the simulation? What is the output? What is the input for the model? And what is the output of the model? So for me, it really helps to have the visualization by simple diagram. You can use Microsoft Vision, for example, or any other simple software. And then after we know how the model works, there are many models that are available out there using simple spreadsheet from Excel, or it's written in R, or they already provide the model in and develop the software that is easier for you to work in. So it really depends on what is the model or what is the objective that you want to achieve through the modeling. Thanks.
Thank you all so much. There are a few questions coming through about the uncertainty related to the pandemic as well. And obviously the situation will be slightly different for round 3 and round 4 students. But we will talk a little bit more about the systems that you have in place, and yeah, every case is a case-by-case basis, but I'm always here if you want to send me an email as well. So we'll go to the next part of the presentation, and that is actually, there's a picture of you right there, Florencia. So just to kind of cover some of the ways that you can make the most out of your CLIFF-GRADS experience. And there are a few systems that we've put in place. Obviously, as you've heard from the previous alumni, you are now current representatives for your home institutes and your home countries. And that's in an academic sense and a cultural sense and also a personal sense. So thanks to all of the previous alumni for sharing how they managed to represent their countries and home institutes and their cultures really well internationally. And that's obviously something to bear in mind for good global ambassadorship and moving forward in your research networks as well. So some of you have already been paired with a buddy in the buddy system that we have set up, which pairs previous alumni with new alumni. And for the round 4 students, we're currently in the process of making those matches. So stay tuned and we will get in touch and let you know who your buddy is. I really encourage you to make the most of your buddy. So do reach out to them and do ask them about anything and everything under the sun. They're there to kind of be a way that you can learn a little bit more about either where you're going to, the host institute, or the country that you're going to, without needing to email me, because obviously I haven't had the experience, so they know more than I do. And yeah, communication, most of you are in the WhatsApp groups that we have set up. They are largely predominantly for sharing research opportunities, any relevant events or resources, any new publications that come up. And if you are not currently in one of those groups, please feel free to message me and I will add you to the group that's relevant to you. So many of you are also already following our Twitter account. There's actually 3 Twitter accounts we have listed here. So there's the CGIAR climate one, which is the CCAF's Twitter account, and the GRA_GHG Twitter account, and also Hayden's Twitter account. And every one of those accounts is sharing, you know, the latest scientific publications and popular dialogues that are going on around those publications that are being made, etc. So please, if you post anything related to your CLIFF-GRADS experience, do use the hashtag CLIFF-GRADS Twitter hash. And yeah, I've just put in the email address again. You all probably already know that off by heart, but do feel free to reach out with any questions that you have on that email address also. So for some of the round 4 students, you haven't actually received these 2 documents on the process around publication, so how to correctly acknowledge any publications related to your CLIFF-GRADS research, and also the reporting requirements. But for everyone else, just a reminder that if you can please provide us the short summary report of your training and any kind of feedback that you have about the experience that you had, so that we can continually improve the CLIFF-GRADS program for you all. And so that would be due 4 weeks after you complete your research visit, but feel free to email me if that's not possible for any reason. So for ongoing involvement in the CLIFF-GRADS program, Hayden mentioned it earlier in his presentation, but please do encourage your peers to apply for CLIFF-GRADS, and please also especially encourage women to apply for the CLIFF-GRADS program. And yeah, feel free to reach out to us at any point in time if you have any concerns. Your feedback is really valuable to us. And we do just love to receive emails from you about what you're currently doing these days. It's just really great to hear where you're at in your career. So yeah, thank you. I will hand over to Suniro to talk about some useful resources that may be relevant to probably all of you.
Great, thanks Hazel. As we said at the beginning, so Hazel and I especially will be assisting you throughout your journey in this program from CCAF's and GRE side. And I would like to start of our interaction introducing you to key CCAF's and GRA resources that I'm pretty sure that will help you during your research time and beyond, which are the samples, the egg MRV, the ACGE calculator, the GRA library, and I'm gonna touch very briefly in the upcoming CCAF's resource guide. These are valuable resources to put something up front, providing you supporting information from basically A to Z in terms of low emissions development in the agriculture sector. So you can find resources spanning from GHG emissions and mitigation options to global climate negotiations, basically. So that's why they are really, really helpful for you through your CLIFF-GRADS journey, as I said. So, okay, so we are in the next slide. So this is the samples. So samples stands for Standard Assessment of Agriculture Mitigation Potential and Livelihoods. So through its website, samples brings reliable information about GHG emissions from agriculture in tropical countries, designed to support developing countries to improve data on agriculture emissions and mitigation potentials. So samples, in this sense, provides a series of reading materials and tools for estimating emissions and accessing mitigation options at many levels across the agriculture sector, such as for livestock, cropping, and agroforestry systems, right? So samples is coordinated by CCAFs along a number of CGIAR centers and scientists, as well as global and regional partners. So next slide, please. So now we have the MRV platform for agriculture. So MRV stands for Monitoring, Reporting, and Verification. And this platform specifically provides you resources and guidance for MRV of mitigation in agriculture. So the MRV platform provides tools, approaches, and case studies for designing and implementing MRV of GHG emissions and mitigation actions in the agriculture sector. So it includes also, for example, those aspects outlined in the Paris Agreement country pledges through their countries' nationally determined contribution, or NDCs. So next slide, please. So the third resource is the agro chain greenhouse gas emission calculator. So this is a tool for estimating GHG emissions associated with food supply chains, including food loss and waste. So it basically combines a calculation framework with data sets containing crops, GHG emission factors, and food loss factors as well, along several ag value chains. And it can be used for identifying hotspots and accessing net benefits of interventions along the chain, right? So CLIFF-GRADS has had 6 students, if I'm not wrong, especially working on food loss and waste. And so far we have had 1 scientific article published in this field using CCAF's resources and CLIFF-GRADS support. Next slide, please. So the GRA library, so this is a great library and repository with very rich material on greenhouse gas emissions, mitigation options and tools. So it's also a great research to explore with lots of materials on this field. So next, please, and that's my last slide touching on the low emissions development resource guide that CKFC is developing. So this is the final resource I would like to present you today. This is intended to be launched by October this year, and it will be a website intended to be a resource on climate change mitigation and in agriculture and food systems, right? So it will provide examples of emissions and mitigation options related to activities connected with agriculture, land use chain, food supply chain, and food consumptions, basically. So we are designing it to be to reach a large range of users, from those completely unfamiliar with mitigation to those seeking to expand their knowledge in a particular sector in these ag emissions and mitigation space, right? So finally, as I said, there are lots of good and qualified information in these resources, and I really encourage you to go there and get familiar with these resources. And again, I'm happy to assist you through your journey, and congratulations for being part of this CLIFF-GRADS. I really hope you enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to working with you all. So now back to you, Hazel, please.
Thank you so very much, Saniro. Those were all really useful, really good to know about at the start of a CLIFF-GRADS research visit. So we do actually have one question here about, Saniro, perhaps you have any experience to share samples, to share about the samples resource, and if you've done any collection of data in the field, perhaps from a previous.
Yeah, so that's a question from
Adnan.
Adnan, okay, Arshad. Yeah, so I'm understanding if I have a personal experience in sampling greenhouse gas emissions, as I understand that, and yes, I do, and well, and share my experience. Well, I don't know if I got these questions right, but well, we do have experience in doing these sort of field campaigns and field samples collection, etc. And as we said, we work in a sort of network among many partners and research institutions and organizations. So each of them have experience in agriculture field. And then our job is trying to understand what are the connections between these fields to drive low emissions development or design LAD strategies and implementation options, right? So we do have this experience, and we do have a network with large experience in this field that can be shared with you and put you in touch with.
Thank you, Saniro. So I don't see any other questions coming through just at this stage, but of course you can email through or text me any questions at the end. So just to start wrapping up, thanks to all of our presenters, to Hayden, to Titis, to Samuel, to Yuri, to Florencia, to Saniro as well. Really appreciate you all making the time to share your thoughts and experience with us. And yeah, just to remind everyone to please register for the upcoming webinars, so the special sessions with our guest presenters and also the student thematic sessions. Open, of course, the special sessions to everyone, to the hosts and to the alumni, and the thematic student sessions to all 4 rounds of the CLIFF-GRADS program. And yeah, we just have the final resources in there for you, but thank you all very much for making the time and joining us today. It's been really wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Hazel.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to share. I like it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Stay
you.
safe, everyone.
Stay safe.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, and stay healthy. Thanks.
Thanks, Hazel.
Thanks, Mira.